I had a front row seat on another Zijin deal. I was chairman of Neolithium, that after 6 years when we started it with a project in Argentina, 150 employees in Argentina, 2 employees in Canada. 2/3 of our shareholders, Canadian institutions, 1/3 global institutions. We embarked on a global process, on a global search to find partners to develop our project in Argentina. And at the end, we got 3 bids to buy us out completely from 3 Chinese companies, because all the American folks that we approached, and we engaged the Bank of America, by the way, they scoured the world. The Japanese passed, the Koreans passed, the Americans, the Germans passed, and 3 bids from China later, we take it to Investment Canada, we take it to our shareholders. 98.7% of our shareholders voted in favor of the deal, and Investment Canada didn't have a problem on the basis of net benefits to Canadians and national security grounds. The project was in Argentina, after all. As soon as that deal was announced, the leader of the Queens, I believe back then, or Her Majesty's Royal Opposition, started screaming, "How are we letting this happen?" And in a knee-jerk reaction, the Prime Minister imposed this new rule about Chinese investments in Canadian critical mineral companies, regardless of where their projects were, had to divest. So it basically killed the junior mining, the exploration sector in Canada, because one of the prime investors into that space on the TSX, on Canadian junior miners, were Chinese investors. The exploration company and the resource sector in Canada is still suffering as a result of that. And I'll use one example. Before Christmas, I had lunch in London with a number of friends, former shareholders of mine and investors, fund managers, who, to a person, they all said, "We're not touching anything in Canada because A, you're not allowing any Chinese investors to jointly help fund the development of these projects. And second, if a Canadian company decides to maximize the value to its shareholders by selling to a Chinese investor, then that's not possible. So what's the point of taking the risk without the appropriate reward?" And Canadian junior mining companies, exploration companies, the companies that are developing the next resource center in the country, they cannot fund themselves. We're having a bit of a double whammy where we're excluding a lot of the risk capital that would have been available to these companies. And second, we're at the down part of a cycle that's making it virtually impossible to finance exploration in the country. So yeah, I would chalk that up to being another own goal. And I think we need to be serious. We need to be adults about it, and things need to change. As long as you can put proper parameters around what happens with these investments, you have to allow a portion of that product to make itself available to Canadian, North American, whatever other customers. But to this day, we don't have a single customer in Canada that's buying lithium and turning it into batteries. So again, what exactly were we trying to protect? China, going back to your earlier point, Stephen, unless we allow these emerging producers and emerging companies to access the largest market for critical minerals, supply chains, EV supply chains, and green technology supply chains, which is China, then we are forcing them to be excluded from one of the easier ways that A, they could finance themselves, and B, they could sell themselves. They can sell their products into a market that will allow them to generate cash flow and get to the next stage.
See, that's a great answer. And I just have one follow-up question just dawned on me while you were speaking is, what has been the reaction of some of these Canadian miners that are, incorporated in Canada, headquartered in Canada? What are they doing in response to this?
Well, again, I am having a number of conversations. A number of them are considering delisting from the Toronto Stock Exchange, listing on the NASDAQ, Sydney, perhaps even Singapore, Abu Dhabi, re-domiciling their headquarters outside of Canada. And I'm also aware of a number of folks who are looking to develop new projects. And I'd be shocked if those projects are owned in Canada by Canadian entities. So again, actions have consequences, and that was not the smartest that we could have done. And I think we're now forcing the hand of entrepreneurs to locate somewhere where they can have a bit more freedom to generate value for their investors.